Have you ever wondered why, despite your deepest intentions, nothing really seems to shift in your reality? You meditate, you visualize, you speak affirmations into the mirror every morning, and still, prosperity feels like a distant star, glowing in someone else's sky. This isn't because you lack belief or willpower, it's because there's something subtler at play, something quiet, something that doesn't shout, but whispers beneath the surface of your vibration. And that whisper is misaligned. Prosperity is not a reward, it's a resonance. And unless your internal frequency is in harmony with the life you're trying to call in, the universe will continue to mirror back exactly what you're emitting, no matter how hard you're trying to change the picture. As Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, your electromagnetic field, a blend of your thoughts and emotions, broadcasts your reality into the quantum field. If you say I am abundant, but feel lack in your body, your frequency is already in contradiction, and the universe, neutral and exact, simply reflects the contradiction. Napoleon Hill once wrote that, "Desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible." But faith is not just a belief, it's an emotional state. It's coherence between heart and mind, between vibration and vision. In this video, we're not going to hand you another list of steps to follow. Instead, we'll guide you through a single subtle internal adjustment, a tuning of your energetic signal that can shift everything. If you've been searching for the missing piece, perhaps it was never missing. Perhaps it was just waiting to be felt. Shall we begin? The invisible error that shifts your frequency away from prosperity. It often begins as a faint discomfort, an ache so subtle we mistake it for restlessness, impatience, or a lack of focus. We believe we are aligned with abundance because we want it so deeply, but the truth is, desire alone does not align us. In fact, when left unexamined, desire often amplifies the very frequency of lack. That is the invisible error, not the wanting, but the energy behind the wanting. Because in the spiritual and quantum planes, it is not the clarity of your goal that determines your experience. It is the coherence of your vibration with it. This invisible misalignment has little to do with logic. You might consciously affirm your worthiness, repeat mantras, even write down your intentions with conviction. But beneath those words lies a quiet emotional field, formed by years of conditioning, emotional wounds, and unresolved memories. Prosperity is not kept away by your lack of effort. It's kept away by the emotional dissonance between what you think you believe and what your nervous system actually expects. When the body has been trained to expect disappointment, no mental declaration will override its truth. That's why people who do everything right still fail to manifest what they seek. Because the body remembers. It remembers every moment you tried and failed. Every time you were told not to ask for too much. Every sigh from a parent who lived paycheck to paycheck. Every financial trauma, even if not your own, lives within you as unspoken instruction. And these memories, when left untouched, broadcast a message far louder than your words. This is not safe. This internal broadcasting system is what Dr. Joe Dispenza refers to as the electromagnetic signature of your being. Your thoughts are electric. Your emotions are magnetic. Together they create a signal that the quantum field cannot misinterpret. That field responds not to your words, but to your state. And when your state is confusion, frustration, or urgency masked as action, the signal is fractured. Urgency is particularly deceptive. It wears the mask of motivation. It tells you that you are determined, that you care, that you are taking steps forward. But in truth, urgency is anxiety in disguise, and the universe hears it as such. The frequency of urgency says, "I don't yet have this, I am incomplete." And so the field echoes back incompleteness. There is a profound difference between moving from inspiration and moving from desperation. Inspiration expands your field. Desperation collapses it. One invites synchronicity, the other creates noise. That noise, subtle, chronic, and internal, is what keeps abundance just out of reach. It's like trying to tune a radio to a clear signal, but there's static in the background. No matter how powerful the transmitter, the static interferes with the clarity of reception. This static often emerges from a core belief that abundance is something to be earned through struggle, that if it comes easily, it must be fleeting or undeserved. This belief is cultural, ancestral, and deeply embedded in our collective psyche. And until we question it, not with our minds, but with our energy, we remain loyal to its story. We chase prosperity like a carrot on a stick, always moving, always longing, never arriving. But the field of abundance is not outside of us. It is a state of inner clarity, emotional safety, and resonance. That means no matter how detailed your vision board, no matter how many hours you meditate, if your inner emotional map is still encoded with scarcity, the vibration you emit will conflict with the vision you hold. And the universe, precise and unbiased, will respond to the frequency, not the fantasy. This is why so many seekers eventually feel betrayed by their own efforts. They believe the process failed, that the law of attraction is flawed, that manifestation is a lie. But what truly failed was not the method, it was the misunderstanding of the method. Manifestation is not mental gymnastics, it is emotional alignment, it is energetic congruence. And the moment you begin to understand that, you can forgive yourself for the struggle and begin to tune your system differently. Tuning begins with observation, not action, not correction, just honest observation of the gap between your intentions and your embodied truth. Where do you say one thing but feel another? Where do you visualize prosperity but carry shame when you receive a gift? Where do you ask for abundance while bracing for disappointment? These micro misalignments are not faults, they are clues. They are opportunities to turn inward and ask the deeper question, what part of me still feels unsafe in abundance? This question alone begins the healing, because it invites compassion, not judgment. It honors the parts of you that adapted to survive, that chose caution over risk, that learned to dim their light to feel loved. And it is in this compassion that coherence is born, not by force, not by repetition, but by softening into emotional honesty. Imagine a piano out of tune. You do not yell at it, you do not strike the keys harder. You call a tuner, and the tuner listens, gently adjusts, slowly brings each string into harmony with the others. That is the nature of energetic alignment. It is subtle, precise, patient, and it begins with noticing the dissonance, not with fixing it. So the invisible error that keeps prosperity at bay is not your lack of effort. It is the noise within your signal, the urgency, the compensation, the anxiety masked as action. And as you quiet that noise, not suppressing but listening, you begin to return to your natural frequency, the one that already knows how to receive, the one that does not chase abundance, but magnetizes it effortlessly, the one that simply remembers who you truly are beneath the conditioning. And that is the beginning of all prosperity, not a striving, a remembering. Your mind is not broken, it's just poorly trained. There is a quiet tragedy in how many people move through life believing that something within them is inherently broken, a flaw in the wiring, a failure in the system. They try to manifest change, but the old thoughts come back. They attempt to meditate, but the noise inside feels louder than silence. They assume their mind is too damaged, too distracted, too resistant to shift. But what they often fail to see is this: the mind was never broken. It was simply trained, by repetition, by trauma, by cultural narrative, to expect less, to settle for struggle and to fear ease. The human mind is not a static machine. It is an adaptive instrument, shaped by experience and repetition. The patterns you think define you are not signs of failure. They are grooves carved over time by emotion, habit, and survival. When a child learns that abundance is dangerous, chaotic, or rare, their mind does not argue with the message. It adapts. It builds neural pathways that normalize scarcity. It forms associations between money and pain, between success and isolation, between desire and guilt. And these associations become your inner compass, quietly steering you toward familiarity, even when that familiarity harms you. This is the great misunderstanding. We blame ourselves for not thinking positively enough, for not having enough discipline, for not being spiritual enough. But what if your mind is simply following the script it was taught? What if every time you sabotage a new opportunity, your subconscious is not resisting abundance, but protecting you from what it believes is unsafe? Bruce Lipton speaks of the biology of belief, the idea that your perceptions, more than your genetics, determine your reality. If you believe the world is unsafe, your body will operate in survival. If you believe prosperity is dangerous, your nervous system will reject it. even if your conscious mind begs for it. In this way, your mind is not your enemy. It is your ally, fiercely loyal to what it has learned to be true. And if what it learned no longer serves you, the task is not to punish it, but to retrain it. Retraining the mind is not about force. It is about familiarity. The mind doesn't change because you tell it to. It changes because you show it, again and again, that a new way of being is not only possible but safe. This is why affirmation without embodiment fails. You can say, "I am abundant" 1,000 times, but if every fiber of your body clenches when you receive money, the affirmation becomes static. The nervous system must be brought into the process. It must learn, through repeated felt experience, that abundance is not a threat, but a truth. This truth begins with small openings. Not declarations, but sensations. Allow yourself to receive something small, a compliment, a moment of rest, a helping hand, and notice how your body reacts. Does it contract? Does it deflect? Do you feel unworthy or exposed? These micro-responses are the language of your subconscious, and it is through noticing them that retraining begins. Imagine your mind as a river. For years, perhaps decades, the water has flowed through the same channels, carved by scarcity, shame, and repetition. You cannot reroute the river with willpower alone, but you can begin to dig a new channel, slowly, patiently, until the current starts to shift. Every time you respond to life with presence instead of panic, with gratitude instead of grasping, you reinforce the new path, and eventually the water follows. The process requires patience because the grooves of thought are deep, but it also requires gentleness. You cannot shame the old pathways into submission. They were built to protect you. Honor them, thank them, and then invite your mind to explore something new. This invitation must be consistent. The subconscious learns through emotion and repetition. That means your rituals matter, not as superstition, but as structure. When you begin the day with a moment of alignment, whether through breath, intention, or silence, you signal to your mind, "This is our new center." When you speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism, you begin to rewire self-concept. When you celebrate even the smallest victories, receiving, resting, trusting, you activate the neural circuits of abundance. Still, resistance will arise. The old self will whisper doubts. It will tempt you with the comfort of chaos. That is not failure. That is proof the mind is waking up. It is learning that you no longer live in survival. It is learning to believe in ease, in peace, in enough. And with each gentle return to the new path, the old story loses power. You do not need to fix yourself. You need to remember yourself, the version of you that existed before fear was taught, before scarcity was inherited. That version is not gone. It is simply covered by years of training in the wrong direction. And now, you are turning inward, not to escape, but to retrain, not to erase the past, but to create new futures with different emotional roots. In the end, the mind is like a wild animal that only trusts what it experiences. No amount of intellectual insight will convince it to change, but if you feed it peace, if you surround it with stillness, if you offer it the felt experience of safety, again and again, it will shift, not in a moment, but in time. And when it does, you will realize that your mind was never broken. It was simply waiting to be led home. Prosperity is a state of alignment, not an external goal. There is a persistent illusion woven into the fabric of modern life, a belief that prosperity is something outside of us, something we must reach, build, or chase. It takes the shape of money in the bank, success in business, a life free from financial worry. And while these are valid expressions of abundance, they are not prosperity itself. They are reflections, echoes of an inner alignment made visible through experience. To seek prosperity as a destination is to walk endlessly toward a mirage, but to embody it as a frequency is to realize it was never somewhere else. It was always a matter of alignment. Neville Goddard once taught that you do not manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. This is not poetry, it is physics, it is consciousness as causation. The truth is that prosperity is not achieved through willpower alone, or even through hard work. It arises naturally when your energy, your thoughts, and your emotional field vibrate in coherence with what you are trying to call in. Prosperity is the outer mirror of an inner resonance. And without that resonance, even the most impressive strategies will fall flat. Alignment is not passive, but it is subtle. It does not shout. It hums quietly beneath your decisions, your thoughts, your posture. When you are aligned with prosperity, you do not need to convince yourself that you deserve it. You already feel in harmony with it. You recognize its tone in your body. You see it reflected in your relationships. You expect ease, not as entitlement, but as a natural outgrowth of your internal ecosystem. And this expectation creates space for prosperity to arrive, often in forms you did not plan and through doors you didn't know existed. But many spend years in pursuit mode. They build their lives around control, strategies, and systems designed to chase abundance like a finish line. And what they often discover is exhaustion, not because the path is inherently flawed, but because the energy behind the path is rooted in resistance. The vibration says, "I am not enough until I achieve this." That frequency, however dressed, is one of scarcity. There is a profound distinction between intention and attachment. Intention says, "I move toward this because it reflects my truth." Attachment says, "I must have this or I will not be okay." The first expands, the second contracts. The universe responds to expansion. It responds to trust, not blind faith but embodied alignment. This is why prosperity feels so far away for those who have not yet resolved their inner conflict with receiving. If your internal blueprint still equates wealth with danger, or success with loneliness, or money with shame, you will unconsciously reject the very thing you say you want. This is not sabotage, it is protection. Until you feel safe in the experience of abundance, your nervous system will prioritize emotional familiarity over transformation. The mind often confuses familiarity with safety. It will cling to the struggle because it knows its rhythm. It understands what to expect. But alignment requires stepping into the unknown, into a frequency that may feel foreign, not because it is wrong, but because you have never lived there before. Learning to live in alignment with prosperity means learning to trust new sensations, peace without guilt, rest without shame, desire without urgency. Imagine a garden. Prosperity is not the fruit, it is the soil, the water, the sun. It is the unseen conditions that allow the fruit to grow. If you obsess over the fruit, you may forget to nurture the ground beneath it. But when the soil is tended, when the conditions are right, growth is inevitable. That is alignment. It is not chasing the result. It is becoming the environment in which that result naturally unfolds. The body, too, must be part of the alignment, not just the thoughts, not just the affirmations. The body holds the memory of unworthiness. It holds the pauses, the flinches, the muscle tension that subtly rejects what you say you want. To shift into prosperity, the body must be included in the vibration. This happens through breath, stillness, presence, and noticing. You do not force it. You listen for where the tension lives, and with compassion you invite something softer to take its place. The challenge is that we've been trained to prove our worth through effort, so when ease arrives, we mistrust it, we sabotage it, we dismiss it. But true alignment feels like stillness within motion. It feels like being moved by something deeper than motivation. It feels like returning, not striving. And in that return, prosperity becomes no longer a future event, but a current atmosphere. When people speak of the flow state, they often describe moments where time disappears, effort becomes graceful, and action arises effortlessly. That is what prosperity alignment feels like. It is not constant bliss or perfection. It is clarity without force, movement without strain. It is the awareness that abundance does not need to be attracted. It needs to be permitted. The mind will often ask, "How do I know if I'm aligned?" The answer is not in thought. It is in your body's reaction. If you feel peace when you imagine having more, you are aligned. If you feel fear, tension, or unworthiness, there is still healing to be welcomed. And that healing is not an obstacle to prosperity. It is the path. To live in alignment with prosperity is to embody the energy of already having, not to fake it, but to practice the state so your body recognizes it as safe. When the body feels safe, the field becomes magnetic. And that magnetism draws opportunities, people, and ideas, not because you manipulated the universe, but because you became resonant with the life you were always meant to live. The simple adjustment, the internal shift that unlocks everything. Sometimes the most powerful change we can make is the smallest one, not because smallness is inherently magical, but because subtle shifts, when made at the root, ripple outward into every corner of our lives. The idea that you are only one internal adjustment away from aligning with a life of deep prosperity may sound improbable, even naive. But this is not the kind of adjustment you can measure in effort or productivity. It is a recalibration of presence, of perception, a return to the energetic foundation from which all things are created. In this return, we don't force the universe to respond. We simply become someone it already recognizes. Carl Jung once wrote that, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This insight points directly at the heart of the adjustment. It is not about changing your desires, nor about abandoning them. It is about becoming aware of the frequency you are currently embodying and recognizing when that frequency is not aligned with what you think you are asking for. The unconscious must be seen, not silenced, and only through seeing can it be transformed. This shift is not external. It is not a new plan, a new schedule, a new hustle. It is internal. It is the quiet decision to stop living from the signal of fear, lack, and delay, and to begin broadcasting something else entirely: sufficiency, gratitude, receptivity. You do not need to become a perfect person to receive, but you must stop broadcasting the emotional signal that tells the universe you are not ready. This emotional signal is composed of countless micro-moments, thoughts you don't speak, emotions you don't acknowledge, beliefs you inherited but never questioned. They are subtle but constant, and they become the architecture of your energetic field. The simple adjustment is not the elimination of all negative thoughts. That's impossible and unnecessary. The adjustment is the anchoring of your identity into a different frequency again and again until the old one begins to lose gravity. Imagine your consciousness like a tuning fork. When struck with presence, it vibrates at the frequency you've habituated over time. For many, that frequency is tied to scarcity, not because they want it, but because it's what they know. This vibration colors every thought, action, and decision. And even when people try to build new realities, they often build from the same frequency, only dressed in spiritual language. But a frequency cannot be masked. It is felt. The universe responds to what you are, not what you perform. So the simple adjustment begins by asking a question that bypasses thought entirely. What frequency am I embodying right now? Not what am I thinking? Not what am I doing? But what am I radiating? This question alone begins to untangle the loop of unconscious reaction. That awareness creates space, and in that space, a new choice becomes possible. A choice not based on fear, history, or repetition, but on resonance. And the moment you choose resonance, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop trying to manifest and begin to attract. You stop trying to convince yourself and start to feel the truth of what you already are. This doesn't mean you will never again feel doubt or fear or tension, but when those feelings arise, you will no longer mistake them for your identity. You will see them as passing weather, not permanent climate. And because of that, you can return to your frequency of choice more quickly, more consistently, and with deeper ease. This shift is supported by practice, not performance. The daily rituals that bring you into presence, breathing, silence, intentional movement, become the instruments through which your frequency is retuned. These are not tasks to be checked off. They are portals. They remind your nervous system that safety exists now. That peace is not a reward, but a resource always within reach. When you enter this space, something else happens. Your mind softens. The grip of urgency loosens. You stop measuring your worth by progress and begin to locate it in your presence. Prosperity begins to feel less like a goal and more like a homecoming. You're no longer chasing a version of yourself that you hope to become. You're remembering a version of yourself you forgot. From this place, action becomes sacred. It's no longer driven by compensation or fear. It's inspired, not reactive. And because the frequency behind the action is different, the results often arrive with more grace, speed, and synchronicity than you could have predicted. The external world reorganizes itself to match the vibration of your inner world. This is not magic, it is coherence. To embody this shift consistently, you must allow something to die, the identity formed around the struggle. For many, this is the hardest part. The part of you that has survived by effort, by proving, by overextending. This version will resist, not because it is bad, but because it has kept you safe. To release it feels like stepping into the unknown. But in truth, you're not stepping into emptiness. You're stepping into spaciousness, into trust, into a frequency where prosperity is no longer a reward, but a reflection. So the simple adjustment is not simple because it's easy. It is simple because it is foundational. It is the subtle conscious reorientation from fear to faith, not as belief, but as embodied vibration. It is the choice to live from the frequency of already enough, and to trust that from this state, life cannot help but respond in kind. The adjustment you keep ignoring is the portal you've been seeking. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when something inside you shifts. Not because you've finally done enough, or proven enough, or sacrificed enough, but because you've paused. And in that pause, you've heard something deeper than thought, a whisper from the self beneath the noise, a knowing that perhaps all this time the key to prosperity wasn't hidden in some distant future or buried inside complicated methods. It was here in you, waiting for stillness. You were never broken. Your life was never off course. The only thing missing was alignment, not perfection, not certainty, just the courage to return to your own center, to trust the part of you that remembers what abundance feels like, not as luxury but as safety, not as success but as coherence. The truth is, the universe has never been withholding anything from you. It simply waits for you to become a match to what you seek. You do not need to chase prosperity. You need to clear the noise within you that keeps pushing it away. That noise is old. It belongs to stories that no longer serve you. And the adjustment, this simple, internal tuning, is your way out of the repetition. It is not about fixing yourself. It is about finding your true frequency and living from that space, again and again, until it becomes your new home. Carl Jung reminded us that the treasure we seek is in the place we fear to go. And for many, that place is stillness, silence, simplicity. But within that stillness, within that brave quiet, lies the exact signal the universe has been waiting to hear from you. Not more doing, more being, not more striving, more remembering. This is your invitation to stop chasing, to start aligning, because prosperity is not earned through exhaustion. It is received through resonance. So now ask yourself, what would happen if starting today you stopped chasing and started resonating? If something in this message stirred something ancient in you, don't let it fade. You're here for a reason. This isn't just another video. It's a mirror. And perhaps it reflected something you've been avoiding or something you've been ready for all along. If you felt seen, supported, or awakened by what you heard, subscribe to this channel. Not for more noise, but for deeper clarity. This space was created for people like you, those ready to live from alignment, not anxiety. There's another video waiting for you right here on the screen, something that will take you even deeper into the frequency of what you desire most. Don't let the shift stop here. Let it unfold. Click, watch, align. This is the beginning of your return.